Last week we talked about motion in the ocean in regards to the atmosphere. This week we'll continue to talk about motion in the ocean in regards to space, specifically tides. Tides are the periodic rise and fall of the ocean surface. When the ocean reaches the highest point on the shore, it's called high tide, and the lowest point, it's called low tide. The water rising up and down the shore is caused by the gravitational pull of the sun and the moon. Now both the sun and the moon are in space near Earth, and our objects in space are going to pull on each other, and this is called gravity. Now the moon has a greater effect on the tide than the sun does, since the moon is closer to the Earth than the sun, and the rule is gravity is stronger when objects are closer together. The moon goes in a circle around the Earth, and this is called the orbit. Now, as the moon circles the Earth, it's going to pull on the water in line with it, both on the side the moon is and on the other side, and this is going to cause high tides in those areas. And the two sides that are not in line with the moon are going to be experiencing low tides. Now, the moon moves around the Earth in a predictable cycle, and we're going to talk about the moon's movement and cycle in tomorrow's lesson, but because of the cycle, the tides are also going to be going in a predictable cycle. For example, when the moon is closer to the Earth in its orbit, it's going to have a greater tidal effect, and this is called perigee. Especially if the moon is new or full, it's going to pull more on the tide. When it's in the farthest point from the Earth in its orbit, the tidal effect is going to be less, and this is called apogee. The main thing that affects the tides is the moon's gravity, but the sun's gravitational pull has an effect on tides as well. However, it is weaker than the moon, and therefore it's either going to add or take away from the moon and not do anything on its own. An example of where it adds to the moon's gravitational pull is called the spring tide. When the sun and moon are in line with the Earth, it's going to cause higher high tides and lower low tides, since the sun is adding to the gravitational pull of the moon. An example of when the sun is taking away from the moon is called a neap tide. When the sun and moon are not in line with Earth, the sun's gravity and tide-making effect is subtracted from the moon, resulting in not very high or very low tides. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, more moderate. Now the difference between high and low tide is called the tidal range. Now in most places it's going to be noticeable on the ocean shores, but the difference is not going to be that great. However, in places like the Bay of Fundy in Canada, the tidal range can be as great as 40 feet. As you can see here, earlier in the day there is not much water on the ground, if at all, but as the tide rises, it's going to go 40 feet higher than it originally was. The reasons for such high tidal range is going to depend on the shape of the shore. In places like the Bay of Fundy, the bay is going to be in a V shape. As water enters from the wide side of the bay, it's going to collect, and by the time it gets to the shore, there's going to be more water than the shore can handle, and it's going to rise up a lot higher. As opposed to a broad shoreline, the water is not going to pile up, so the tidal range is not going to be as great. That's all you need to know for today. Tomorrow, we're going to continue talking about the moon and its cycle and how it circles the Earth. Please make sure to answer the questions in the form below and hit the submit button. If you got questions, reach out to me on the Google Classroom and we'll be in touch. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.